You're pretty eloquent yesterday. It's anything changed 24 hours? Are you in a better place mentally? Like what's happened?
Well, there's been some conversations in here that I think help help you cope a little bit better. I've texted with Josh, so checking on him makes me feel better. But I haven't seen any new updates. So until there's like a positive update, I think we're all, I mean, personally, I'm still a little shook up by it.
Do you even want to stand here and talk about football? I guess I don't want to be disrespectful. I don't know what to ask. Do you want to talk about football?
Look, I know
or
it's
no?
it's tough for you guys too, because anytime there's something like this, you don't want to gloss over it. It's obviously on our minds, all of us, but we're also, creatures of habit. This is our job. We have to deal with adversity all the time. So I'll welcome any question about Detroit, any question about DeMar, any question about any of the way it was handled, any of it.
Well, okay, one more thing. 50 years ago, a Lions player who actually had heart problems collapsed and died. And as a result of that, they started having ambulances at the stadiums, which probably has helped out fans. And you got to also think that those EMTs, they saved his life. So at least, can the league get better at doing this in terms of player safety and all that from these experiences?
Yes, of course. Whoever said 5 minutes should have their job evaluated, I think. Look, I think from the negotiations that happened a few years ago, it's pretty evident that the league talks about player safety, but they added an extra game that was all about money. It had nothing to do with player safety. Now, there were a few things added in for former players, but this was a black eye for the league, and got to do better next time.
Are you okay with playing this game on Sunday? Would you rather have it pushed back a week if it was possible, just because of all the emotions all the teams are feeling right now?
Yeah, it just depends on how everybody's feeling. I think we'll all be ready come Sunday. There's a lot to play for, but out of respect for DeMar and the Bills and the Bengals, whatever the league decides, we'll be on board with.
And the Lions obviously have not been in this position a whole lot. Playing these kind of big games are more normal for you guys. There's some guys that are saying, hey, this is the biggest game we've ever played in. Does any of that matter when it comes to kickoff?
No, I think it matters in the lead up. It matters how people deal with that. We've played in some pretty big games over the years, and at the same time, it's a young league. Not a lot of guys in here have been a part of those big games. There's a smattering of guys for sure, but there's always new guys that got to feel what that pressure feels like of a true win and in, lose and go home scenario. And we've had a couple of these over the years against the Lions. We had one in 2016. Now we're both, I'm sure, watching in the locker room that night, because there was a game that decided whether or not it was a play-in or we were both in and we're playing for seeding, which turns out, because of the loss in the prior game, we're playing for seeding. We won. We got to host a playoff game, and they went on the road. And then obviously in 14, when we were both really good, 11-4 at the time, we were playing for the 2 seed or the 5 seed, and had a real good battle that we ended up coming out on top. But I think that helps some of us old guys who have experience with it. And then it just depends on how guys can handle the anxiety and the pressure leading up to it. Once the game starts, it's football.
Aaron, if you guys win, however far you go in the playoffs, you'll be on the road. Do you have any clarity in your mind whether or not this is or isn't your last game at Lambeau Field?
No, I don't. I'm going to take some time after the season. I got a lot of great memories here at Lambeau, and hopefully can add another one on Sunday.
Do you expect that thought at all to go through your mind on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Just because you don't know what the future holds. But when I think about that, it's nothing but gratitude. Not remorse or sadness, just gratitude for the time that I've been here, the amazing memories that I've had on this field. Been a lot of great moments. But, I'm still undecided we're all undecided about the future, and we're just going to enjoy Sunday night and hopefully have some more to play for.
What are the similarities and maybe some differences you see between this last month, the way it's gone, and that run y'all had in 2016?
Yeah, I mean, I think there was, one similarity. We really got it going on offense in those last 6 games. We started a lot faster, starting with the first game against Philly. We scored a couple early touchdowns, played from the lead. We've been doing that a little more consistently in the last few games. But it's just been all 3 phases. Like during that stretch, our defense, did a nice job of holding the opponent, creating turnovers. A couple games with multiple turnovers. Then offensively, taking care of our job and scoring points.
Aaron, your thoughts on this game being a primetime game and playing in prime time? Were you a little surprised that it wasn't an earlier game, just because the Lions will know going into this game what's going on with their situation?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the schedule, there was really 3 options probably. Cincy and Baltimore, New England, and Buffalo, and us. If you look at the ratings from Christmas, it's not too surprising why Green Bay's in that slot. And obviously both teams have a lot to play for. If Seattle loses, it's a play-in game, so it could get even more interesting.
Aaron, I think for me, one of the more memorable things you said this season, talking about running the table in 16, was sometimes you got to speak things in confidence, even if you fully believe in yourself. A month ago, I believe that you and the team standing here with a win and get into the playoffs type game.
There was something in there that had hope, but it was a fool's hope at the time, I think. And so much had to happen, which is why, like I said Sunday night, I think I had to wrap my head around the other scenarios and find a peace in that. I think anytime you're dealing with the unknown, if you can take your mind to the worst case scenario and put yourself in that position and find peace and contentment and just a general sense of I'm okay, it makes that unknown a lot less scary. And I think for any of us who did that and took our mind to the places of what if we do lose another game and we're out of this, and finding some joy and peace in those moments of frustration, maybe allowed us to play a little bit freer. But I still go back to the Chicago game in that fourth quarter, which gave us a lot of confidence. And since then, we've practiced with a different level of energy. There's been a lightness in the locker room and a lot of positive things that give you confidence that this team has a chance to make a run.
That was a turning point for you, that fourth quarter in Chicago.
Definitely, yeah, because 19-10 at the end of the third quarter, and we, outscored them 18-0 in the fourth. Came up with turnovers in the fourth, scored points, 2 scoring drives, and then got the ball back on a pick, and then Christian, went down the sidelines to put it away. But that was a turning point, I think, for us, because 4-9, probably out of it.
It looked like it. When you got to 1917, you started coming back in that. You could see your defense, your special teams flying out. Did you get a sense of that during the game?
Not really. I just think that it felt a little bit different in the locker room. There was maybe a deep exhale from everybody, and then we had the bye week. And the bye week allowed me to get healthy. I think allowed us to mentally get some clarity. And we came back, and for whatever reason, we had a different level of enjoyment and energy at practice. And I really feel like that kind of stuff can translate, not always translate directly. We've had great weeks of practice over the years and laid an egg on Sunday and vice versa. But I think for the most part, the trend is usually the way you practice, the energy you have out there, the excitement and the joy translates to positive performances on game day.
Conversely, Detroit at one point the season was 1-6. Now they're 8-8. What have you seen from them in the second half of the season?
Well, I think they've got some guys healthy on offense. Jared's been very consistent. They got 2 good runners. They got a lot of weapons on the outside. Defense, they've done some different things in the last 8 or 9 games, but they've been playing a little bit more sound, and they've been playing with a lot of energy. I think our game kind of maybe galvanized them to turn it back in the right direction, and they've been playing really good football, as good as just about anybody in the league the last 9 weeks.
Aaron, Hutchinson has improved week after week, and then in the last 5-6 weeks, 59 Houston. What's your process during the week? Do you have to spend some time with your O-line to figure out what the pass protection is going to be like to face some new looks like that?
I mean, in the West Coast, you're trained. Protection is the starting point for every passing play. So every passing play for me always starts with protection. I think our guys have been playing pretty good up front. The last few weeks against some good pass rushes, we've done a good job of keeping me clean for the most part and limiting the amount of hits that I've taken. And I've done just good enough to kind of move away from some and every now and then scramble for a first down. But the protection, I think, has been, obviously, when Dave's in there, it's different. And the way Elton's settled at left guard, and I've talked a lot about John at right guard and Josh at center, and then both guys who played right tackle last week have been solid for us.
You mentioned that, Paul.
You guys have been great at turnover margin during this run right now. When you look back at the first meeting, that played a big role. How much has that been emphasized this week? And looking back, how much do you think it makes a difference if that changes?
No, I mean, it makes a huge difference, but it's emphasized every single week. It's one of those dead horse stats that's always getting beaten up every single week. It's like, yeah, we get it. The turnover margin equates to victories usually, and here's the stats. You're even, it's this. You're +1, it's 80%, 70% win. +2 is 80% win. Whatever. But yeah, I mean that's a part of football. And when our defense gets 4 turnovers and we don't turn it over, we're going to win a lot of those games. They've been doing a great job. Obviously, the end of the last 5 quarters, they've had 7 turnovers. That's pretty impressive stuff. We should win all those games.
You're talking about anxiety with Detroit a minute ago.
Yeah.
How do you handle big games? Do you feel in a big game? Do you feel different? And if so, how do you handle that? Either going into a game or just as that game's ready to start.
Yeah, that's a good question, Bill. I try and just prepare the same way. So, regardless of the circumstances, who we're playing, what personnel they got, what the records are, what the time and the schedule, it's all got to be the same preparation. So that allows me to kind of stay in the moment and not obviously make it too big. Now, it's a learned process. When I was, playing in the Super Bowl, I was super nervous, and I think that's probably the case for most people. But throughout that run, we hadn't won a playoff game yet. Went to Philly and won a playoff game. Then we're playing a number 1 seed. There was nerves there, and I played lights out. And then we're playing our longtime rival for the AFC Championship. Of course, there's nerves, and then playing the Super Bowl is even more nerves. I think after you go through that, you get that monkey off your back. You learn how to maneuver some of those big games, and it all comes down to just simplifying things. And if you really get nervous, you got to go back to the simplest form of your job, and that's the art in it, and just talk yourself through the steps and the reads and make things as easy as possible. Because I think what usually happens for most players is your mind just starts racing so much that you lose track of the single-minded focus that kind of keeps you in the moment.
I know it's not your jurisdiction, but defensive back play at a very high level. Obviously, you go against them every week for years. Have you noticed anything different about your secondary? Because it seems like the last 3 halves have been connected really all season.
I think we've been a little more aggressive in man, it looks like, and then we've done a good job of mixing up the zone coverages. You look at the plays we made in Miami; those were zone coverages, all 3 interceptions. At the same time, I felt like last week we played a lot more match coverage, man coverage, and I felt like we challenged them. We challenged them in the line of scrimmage. I saw a lot of quick jams, 2 to 1 to none, jams off the line of scrimmage. I feel like we were a little more aggressive, and that kind of fits our mindset a little bit more. There may have been times early in the season where it seemed like we were playing a little bit loose, and I love whatever adjustment was made, or maybe it's just a single-minded change from Ja or Sewell or those guys putting their heads together, but it seems like we've been a little bit more aggressive. And then when we do that and tie in the looks man zone to make them look the same, we can confuse some quarterbacks and come up with some picks.
Aaron, with Jamal, week 18 last year, one of the big memories I have is all the hugs that you had for Jamal and your teammates had for him going on the field. When you look at a game like this, is it going to be game face from the start, or is there still time for that levity and that friendship to have its place before the game?
Well, I'm a hugger, so if I see Jamal, I'm giving him a hug, man. I love Jamal. He's one of my all-time favorite teammates. He is one of the happiest teammates we've ever had, one of the greatest guys in the locker room that I've been able to work with. Not just an absolute tough guy and a stud on the field, but a great, interesting person off the field with all his various interests, and phenomenal interview as well. I will always be a huge Jamal fan and love the opportunity to have worked with him for a few years, because everywhere he goes, he changes people for the better.
What do you think of his season? 15 scores.
He's incredible. I mean, he's incredible. He's got to be one of the biggest bargains in the league at what he signed for. Because, again, Jamal is so much more than just production on the field. And the production, like we've seen this year, is fantastic. But he's such a great locker room guy. He's a great leader, motivator, works his ass off. I mean, in the off seasons and in season. And he celebrates his teammates. You know, he's never been the lead guy. And even down there, they're switching off. They give him more touches, it seems like, in the red zone. But he's always celebrating Swift and the other guys. I can't say enough good things about Jamal.
Talked about Matt's and all the motion, and some really nice runs out of motion, you know, with guys motioning. And I don't know if it's because of the motion or not. You would know that better.
He'd probably say it was.
Yeah. Have you guys found a place, you know, a comfort place to you where that motion is effective both for you and for the offense?
Yeah, look, our offense is always going to involve motion. That's just the nature of this offense. It's different than the kind of stagnant stuff that we ran for so many years here. But I've been in this offense for a while. I think there's a great place for it. I think when it gets too far out there, maybe tagged on too many plays, then I might say in a walkthrough, hey, can we take a couple of these off that are maybe unnecessary motions? But I think Steno does a great job of tying the motions all together in the run game, in the action game, and in the pass game, and all of our situations. And it can be a weapon for us against teams that want to, match coverage. It can also be a weapon for, the eye discipline and the run fits in the run game. And we've had some success. I mean, I give those guys a lot of credit. I think Steno in the run game has done a fantastic job using motion and coming up with, simple plays that work, like that lined up, last week where it looked like we're going to maybe sneak and DeGuara is going to push me, and then we flipped it out to the left and had a 30-yard gain. That's a phenomenal play, design. It's one of those things where you come in a meeting and you see it on the board, you're like, oh, that's going to be good. That's going to be good. So, again, that play didn't really have a motion, but had a shift. But we've utilized motion really well, and it's in, so many plays, so you can't get a beat on it, whether it's a run play or it's a pass play or it's an action or it's a keeper, because there's damn motions on all the plays.
Aaron, I ask this knowing that your stats aren't always a specific indicator of your impact on the game, but you had like 15 touchdown passes and no interceptions in that run-the-table stretch, and I think it's 4-2 in the last 4 games. How do you think you've played this stretch, and is it, freeing, encouraging for you that you guys are playing complementary football to a level where you don't have to put the team on your back for long stretches?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to. I'd like to be 15-0. That was a fun run. But those are different teams, different players, different mindset, different scheme. And I just need to be efficient. If I'm efficient and taking care of the football as best I can, making the right checks, I can still impact the game in a positive way. And I, take a lot of pride in that, in the preparation of that, and in the performance of that. But yeah, I mean, of course, I'd love to be, throwing more touchdowns and scoring more points.
I believe you said yesterday that this team is better than the 16 team. Is that right?
I think personnel-wise, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask how do you think it's better?
I just think lined up personnel-wise, if you go kind of across the board, I think it's a little bit more talented team than that team was. Now that team had some guys who've been a part of winning some really big football games. This team has less of those guys. But I just think this team is a little bit more talented top to bottom, definitely in the back end. The way our guys play in this defense, I think is, guy for guy is probably a little bit better on that side of the ball. Offense is probably pretty similar. And then we have Keyshawn Nixon.
Aaron, you were talking about your last answer from Sunday earlier here.
Yeah.
One of the things you said in there was that you had been asked to step up your leadership. I'm wondering who asked that, and in what ways do you think you have done things differently, especially during this last run from a leadership perspective?
Well, a lot of times it's not asked; it's just felt. I think that's the most important thing about leadership is it got to be authentic, often spontaneous, and can't ever be too much. It's got to be just the right amount. And I think there's times to speak up, there's times to be quiet and defer and let other guys speak up. I think that's all part of the leadership role. So there's been times for me to step up and, Matt usually gives me the floor at the end of games that we win to kind of recap the day and refocus the team moving forward. And I take a lot of pride in those moments. I don't prepare anything. Actually, sometimes I almost hope he's going to call on Big Dog or somebody else, but I do enjoy the opportunity to speak to the guys. I think anytime you're on a young team and you're age-wise so far separated, you have to try harder with some of these guys to really connect with them. It's just different age group, different interests, and I felt like I've really been trying to look for those opportunities with some of the young guys, and then pull in some of the other guys who needed to feel like they were still a part of it. At the same time, I think it's important to empower other leadership as well. That's a part of being a leader. And side conversations with Big Dog or Preston or Devondre or Aaron Jones or Cobby or Allen, some of our best leaders, to just say, hey, let's focus on this guy this week, or hey, put your arm around this guy. We need this guy to come along. And there's certain guys in the locker room who we had to keep tight. Sav is one of them. And it wasn't like a concerted effort to make sure that Darnell feels like he's a part of this. It's just, let's just make sure we're keeping our eye on him because he's one of our guys. And at some point, he's going to be an important part of what we're doing. And I give Sav a lot of credit for his professionalism, the way he came in here and performed and took on his role on the special teams, and then went out in the game and had a pick six. So it's just, you got to have a pulse of the locker room and how things are trending energetically and enthusiastically and focus. And I think I've just really tried to dial into that, lean on the other leaders to make sure we're sharing the same information, and then when necessary, give the right message at the right time.
Have you tweaked anything, and correct me, again, as always, correct me if I'm wrong, have you tweaked anything in terms of how you behave in-game? There's been a couple instances where it looks like you're just kind of screaming angrily down to the ground instead of maybe reacting to a mistake. Have you changed that part of it, or have there been fewer times?
There might have, yeah, maybe a little bit of both. Anytime I see myself out there screaming, I think about Joe Philbin and I's conversation from years ago, and I'm kind of, scorned in the moment by his echoing words in my ear. But because I never want to show anybody up out there, I'm always mad at myself. But it's hard to figure out who I'm actually mad at sometimes. Sometimes I might yell at Matt just for fun, and because I want to reconnect with him. It's like when you get mad at your spouse and just to have some makeup time. We're not doing any of that, but we're definitely having some conversations after that to make sure we get on the same page. So, but no, I check myself on all that. I'm very critical of not just my play, but my leadership, and I want guys to know how much I love them and care about them, and also that I'm holding to a high standard.
So even while you're encouraging others, are there times with yourself you wrestle between being an optimist and a realist in a situation?
I think that's the tug in all of us at times. There's the optimism, there's the hope of a better situation, better life, better scenario, better moment, and then the realistic view that you're in this moment, be present, deal with what's in front of you, and make the most of what's right in front of you.
Speaking of great leaders, what are your thoughts on Giannis's 55-point performance last night?
I love Giannis, man. I'm a big fan. That was a phenomenal game for him. He's definitely. We were talking the other day in the locker room. They love talking basketball in here. He's debating like LeBron and Jordan, Kobe, different things. And the conversation was like, who do you want to start a franchise with if you're starting a franchise? And nobody could, beat me in a debate that it'd be Giannis all day.
Given the scenario that obviously Lions are kind of the Cinderella going up against one of the greatest nationally, I think maybe safe to say people are going to be rooting against you. Do you enjoy that aspect that maybe you haven't had very often?
I don't care about that. I'm not going to be hearing that. I'm hearing hopefully close to 80,000 people who haven't turned their tickets over to Lions fans and are nice and loud like they were last week. Hopefully we'll see less other colors. There was quite a bit of purple in the stands. They weren't very loud as the game wore on, but quite a bit of purple in the stands. Hopefully it'll be maybe less blue in the stands this week, but it's interesting. You know, it's not a bad question. It's just when we're playing, we don't feel 25 million sets of eyes on us. We feel 80,000, and ultimately we feel our own sight, which is the most important sight, and wanting to make sure that we play well for our buddies and our coaches and our loved ones. But obviously we know, we're a big draw. There's going to be a lot of fans watching. But when you have success for a long time, or we have, it polarizes the fan base. They either love you, or they want to see you fall. So hopefully we can disappoint some people on Sunday night.